Huh?
Normal week.
Normal, right? For some people.
Less people in the open house.
More people at the open house.
More people, less,
Yeah.
I think less in the line.
That- So what I think is gonna happen, guys, with this whole change is that you guys are gonna see increased activity in open houses. Because buyers will quickly learn that they do not need a buyer rep signed when touring open houses.
Right.
So those that are not looking to commit yet, or who are afraid to sign themselves into a contract, you're gonna see them all going to open houses. So I believe open houses is gonna be a great way for you guys to actually get buyer leads and attempt to convert them. Okay? But what I do want you guys to work on, because from what I've experienced in the last 2 weeks since this all started, there's so much misinformation out there and so many agents that don't know what they're doing. And I'm gonna give you guys examples of situations where outside agents actually lost an accepted offer because of it, yeah. So there was one listing I had, and it was a multiple bid situation, right? And all the agents that came in with their buyers, they're like, what's the buyer agent commission? What's the buyer agent commission? And I said to each of them, my seller is open to cooperating with the buyer agent. You should have already an established contract signed with your buyer indicating what compensation is. So just work that into your offer. They look very confused. So you know they don't have a buyer contract, right? So I was receiving offers and there was multiple bids over asking price, right? And the commission that were indicated in the offer forms were all scattered, right? You see 1.5%, you see 2%, you see 3%. And we ended up accepting one where the commission was 2%. Or as it seems indicated in her offer form, right? It was over asking. In her offer form, she wrote 2% to buyer agent. And then days passed, I asked her to do an inspection. And days passed, I'm like, what's going on? Where's your buyer? Are they doing an inspection? She's like, I don't know what's going on. They keep giving me the runaround. He says he's working. And I basically said to her, you know, if you don't get an inspection in, I gotta move on, right? And then she said something that just like shocked me. She said, you know, it might be the commission because he doesn't want to pay me out of pocket. And I said to her, what are you talking about? You worked your commission into the offer. I've already presented your offer to the owner that your commission of 2% was right. And it was just like dead silence. She's like, what do you mean? So apparently she presented the offer wrong, right? It was already built into the offer. It was accepted at that. And at the same time, she was telling her buyer that he had to pay a 2% buyer agent. Guys, it's crazy out there. She ended up losing the deal. Oh, right? Because I went to the next offer. And it was even lower commission at the same price. So what I do see from this whole settlement is that sellers are coming out on top. Because I used to pay out anywhere from 2.5% to 3% to buyer agents without them even trying, right? And now my sellers are saving 0.5%, 1%, even more, right? So this lawsuit benefits the sellers tremendously. And it is really affecting buyers and buyer agents if they don't know what the hell they're doing. That is one example of how a buyer agent who was improperly trained lost an accepted offer because she had no clue that her commission that she wrote on her offer form was already built into the price and accepted by the seller. Okay, go ahead.
If the seller accepts
either 1%, 3%. After accept offer, do you need paperwork?
Yes. Okay. Michelle, you gonna do the training with the thing? You know the
Or you need to sign the paper with your over
Yes.
email.
Yes.
And then make sure the seller signs back to you.
After you have an accepted offer,
I accept them.
there's a form that says the seller agrees.
Yeah, I know that form. I just need to know if that form need to submit it with the offer. Then it should go.
After your offer is
After the
accepted.
offer.
The same email, or I have to be after the acceptance?
They're not gonna get it signed until your offer is accepted anyway, right? So as long as the agent, the listing agent knows that the offer includes the buyer agent commission, and the listing agent knows what they're doing, then you should be protected, okay? Another story, a lot of attorneys, guys, do not know what's going on.
Is this the form that she's talking about?
There's an EXP one too.
There's an
Yeah.
Oh,
Guys, I gave you guys links to LIBOR and EXP.
Sorry.
EXP link has a tremendous amount of resources that you guys need, okay? Also, I want you guys to love for you all to also give this to your buyers, right? And I emailed this to Vincent, Jennifer, and it's a very clear image and information on how agents are compensated, okay? So you guys could.
I'm gonna share my screen now. so you can-
Okay. Yeah.
Francis, can you give the right to share?
Oh, sorry.
So this whole thing, I want to share our experiences in the last week of what I've been seeing, what I've been experiencing, so you guys could avoid the same mistakes, because it's crazy out there. It's really crazy out there. So that's one example of how a buyer agent lost her deal.
Can the agent require seller to pay 1/2, like make a confirmation, the seller will pay 1.5% before they submit any offer?
You have to call it out.
You could ask. But majority of listing agents may not tell you. So as a listing agent myself, I would never openly disclose to you what my sellers will compensate as a buyer's agent. Why am I gonna show my cards before you show your cards? Right? What if I had told those agents, yes, my seller's paying a 2.5% commission? Would they have submitted their offer with only 1.5% commission or 2% commission?
No, they.
No. So I look, as a experienced listing agent, I am looking out in the best interest of my seller. So I am not showing my cards ahead of time. And it's a very easy conversation, because I went on a listing appointment with Michelle. And, you know, I was like, Michelle, you do it. I want to hear. She's like, I want to hear you do it. But the more you do it, the easier it is. And just keep it simple, right? We kept it very, very simple, and we'll go into that later, but yeah, this is the form that Jade was asking about, right? So let's say those agents that submitted an offer for my listing, right, and I accepted their offer, what that first agent should have done is send me a form like this to confirm that my sellers are paying her commission, which is included in the price, right? Because we no longer have MLS dictating and also reinforcing what our compensation was. Back then, everything was on MLS and that was our record, right? Like, we're entitled to this percentage because that's what you wrote on MLS. That no longer exists, yeah.
Maybe one question, you mean it's included in the offer, means our sample is 320. So 300 is the offer and 20 is just our number, right? 20 is my commission. That means when I'm sending the offer means that I'm also including my commission. That's what you
So if the offer is 320, you just say it's 320
Mhm.
and my commission of whatever percent is already in that price.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, we're not doing like 320 and then now add another 2% and now the price is, whatever, yeah. So whatever offer you present includes that compensation.
the 1%, 2%, whatever is what we agree with the buyer.
Correct, correct. Okay, and this is your confirmation, or this is what helps solidify your guaranteed compensation if the seller says, no, I never said I was gonna pay the buyer's agent 2%. And now you have absolutely no proof or guarantee, right? So you need to sign that the seller did in fact, say, okay. Another way to solidify this, and we were sending out deal sheets all week, right? You have to have it on the deal sheet, right? I understand, but the attorneys will then put it in the contract.
Mhm.
Some attorneys. Yeah, but once it's signed in the contract, they feel like it's more solidified than anything. So when we had when we're doing trial and error, and I'm telling you guys this from our trial and error, okay? So we sent a deal sheet out to two attorneys that are pretty well known in the community here, right? And they themselves are confused, okay? So on the deal sheet, it says, price includes, what did it say? Give me 1 second. Then I had to go back and forth with this attorney on a Friday because she didn't understand what the whole amount actually was. Bear with me. My eyes.
She admitted she didn't understand.
No, well,
A lot of them don't,
I have a good relationship with her. It's not too long, by the way, it's another attorney. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so in our notes, we wrote, the price includes a 2% buyer broker's commission. And then we also have a section seller's concession 0. So the attorney said, wait, so the commission's only 2%? And I said, my response to her was, so it went back and forth, just so you guys know. He explained a 2% broker commission. If there's, is the actual selling price this amount or less because of the commission? What number is the 2% commission based on? So I went back and forth with her, because we also have a seller's concession, declaration of credit included in it. And I wrote, the commission is on the sale price of this price. Due to NAR settlement, buyer agent compensation is now removed from the MLS. All buyers must have a buyer rep contract with their agent indicating compensation. For this particular deal, they worked it into the sale price. So then she wrote back, so does that mean that the net to the seller is this amount? I said, no. We also need to add the listing agent commission. She's like, why isn't that on the deal sheet? I said, the listing agent commission is already guaranteed in the listing contract, but the buyer agent commission is not. But moving forward, I think attorneys need to know both sides of the compensation, because I think moving forward, the trend is gonna be that they're gonna put both sides of the commission on the contract, and they need to know who's compensating it. So I said to her is, what I wrote to her is, the reason why only the buyer commission is mentioned on the deal sheet is because their commission used to be guaranteed through the MLS. Now with the changes, the buyer commission must be disclosed as to how buyer agent is getting compensated. Only the listing side commission is listed and signed by the seller on the new MLS contract. Although buyers have a contract with their buyer agent, their compensation can be paid in various ways. Worked into the price and paid by seller, partially worked into the price and the seller and buyer pays a portion each, or worked into a seller's concession to cover buyer's closing costs, and buyer will compensate the buyer agent. For this particular transaction, it is worked into the price and paid by seller. So she didn't respond back after this, so I hope she understood, or should I just confuse her even more? But moving forward, right? Your deal sheet, there is one created by LIBOR, right, which is the memorandum, you guys see it? The memorandum. That discloses everything about the transaction so that the attorneys could put it into their contract clearly, okay?
Be the confusing going forward.
Well, we also, no, well, Cindy created one with our logo on it too, so, yeah, so you guys choose and pick, but what you need to know is that all of the compensation, if you don't want any problems at the closing table, should be on the deal sheet so that the attorneys work into the contract too, okay?
Now, the attorney, they have to know the commission.
They, yeah,
Before
I
they
think
do that.
they move, yeah,
No, yes.
No, but before the listing.
with
the
guaranteed or.
Guaranteed, so whatever was paid out of MLS, that was your guaranteed payment. So even if the listing agent would change the MLS, it's kind of when you put the offer, and that's the time when you show,
history of
whatever
it.
that payout was what you were guaranteed as far as payment.
Like this week, I got accept one offer, well, that was prior to 17. So
It
was-
doesn't matter, did it go into contract?
He did.
Okay.
So we signed, so what I did, I put it in the offer sheet, 2% of the commission will be paid to the buyer agent. And they're okay with it. But I still have to submit this.
Yes, please, you should, yeah,
Okay.
cover yourself.
Yeah,
Because if it's not in the contract, signed by both parties, just get this signed too.
In the contract, they did put last night we reviewed the contract, it says brokers are involved in this.
Doesn't say your commission, does it?
It did not say how much.
So you have to. Your involvement does not guarantee compensation, right? So it could have been like, why, now with the new law, collecting from your buyer, what are you gonna do?
Instead of making the form signed by the listing agent, showing them the direct compensation from stuff.
this is, they,
If you worked it into the price, or if you worked a portion of it into the price.
that's the listing agent that's signing, the seller is signing.
Yeah, you send it to the listing agent to get the seller to sign.
Right, but then if they don't wanna sign it, somebody's gonna form an email, the percentage they pay, that's fine too.
No, that's not
By,
contract,
by email,
no,
there has to be another form.
get it signed, yeah. Yeah. Okay,
I'll show you the whiteboard one also. That's once the offer is accepted.
correct. All
Before
right,
it goes into contract.
yeah. I want to tell you guys another experience I had. Is your head hurting?
My tooth, my head.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could save, just like Michelle does, and then you could do little notes next to it too, right? You could do like, when offer is accepted to guarantee commission, and you can write little notes for yourself.
So this one is from LIBOR, and it says, subject property, the seller, the listing broker, the buyer, the wire broker.
Oh, you covered your thing.
I mean, I can show it.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so I put the address, I put the seller's name, I put the listing broker, I put the buyer's name, I put my information, and I negotiated to 2%.
The listing broker is.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So the
Very welcome.
Oh, entirely.
So you put those other things and stuff.
I don't know.
I put the agent
Yeah.
and the company name.
Okay.
And then I put the
Thank you.
2%.
There-
I personally like this one better than EXP, because the EXP one shows, length of agreement. I don't wanna put a length of agreement, I like that this one is just stating that they agreed to pay me for this deal, right? Yeah. This is the form, confirmation of seller's agreement. I sent it out with the deal sheet. Okay. So this way, if the listing agent doesn't get it signed, the attorneys will have them get it signed.
So important to work with attorneys that you guys know, guys. I want to tell you about another experience I had, and then I'm gonna see if you guys have any experiences to share as well. So I also had a showing on a house that I have. It's very important that you guys get buyer rep contract signed ahead of showing. Because buyers are liars, okay? So a buyer and their agent scheduled to see a house listing that I had. And then another buyer, his friend, also scheduled a showing to see the property. Neither of them signed a buyer rep contract with their agent. So they contacted me directly and said they want to give an offer. And I said, you need to go back to your buyer agent and work with them because you have a contract with them. They said, no, I don't. I did not sign a buyer contract with them. And I want to come in as an unrepresented buyer now. So what happened? You lose, guys. I work for my seller, right? So now I get them to sign. Can you show the unrepresented buyer stuff, Michelle? Can you show?
Oh,
that? So I get them to sign a document that says that they are they have non-representation because I don't want the agent coming back later and saying that that's my buyer, right? Because then they'll be responsible themselves to pay a commission. So my job is to present the offer and get my seller their price. And because this agent did not get a buyer rep contract signed prior to showing, and these buyers were smart and they knew about the new law change, they said, I'm gonna come in as an unrepresented buyer now. I'm not paying a buyer agent commission. Yep, and we got their offer accepted again at a lower price because my seller saved on buyer agent compensation. And this is a house, guys. Yeah.
This is only for EXP.
No, anybody can use it. There's no EXP logo. EXP created these documents.
EXP listings only?
Yes, well, the buyer came directly to me.
Do we have for non-EXP?
No, they can't be non-represented, you have to represent the buyer.
Because it was my listing, I'm able to do it, right? I can't bring a buyer to another listing agent's property and be unrepresented. Why would I do such a thing? I would be working for free.
Right.
Right? So this is why it's so important, guys, because it's only been the first week or a week and a half of this change. And these buyers know how to play the game, guys. They know what to do. So those of you who think, well, no one's gonna check my buyer rep contract, right? I'm gonna just show properties and pretend I have a buyer rep contract because I know agents are doing that. You guys are gonna run into this same scenario where they're gonna go behind your back. And now that you don't have a buyer rep contract, you don't get anything.
All the time,
All the time is wasted.
If you're gonna accept them as unrepresented, you're gonna do both jobs, but only get paid as a listing agent.
Depends, because if I took the listing and I indicated a certain percentage in the listing contract for an unrepresented buyer, you could get that too.
I get that.
Yeah. But it's probably gonna be less than whatever if they wanna kick the buyer agent out because they didn't really have a relationship, a fiduciary relationship, they can now. Because they went against the law of not getting a buyer rep contract signed. Sorry. Yeah.
Now, the destinations are taking advantage of that.
Not taking advantage. My fiduciary duties are to my seller client. I can't tell the buyer, you have to go sign a contract with that agent. They have a choice now.
Right.
Right? Because the buyer agent didn't follow proper protocol, the buyer agent is at fault, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because they didn't sign a buyer contract. You can't tour homes without a buyer contract.
So, but let's put an example, there are two buyers, one with an agreement, one without. The two offers come in the same number, right? You are the listed agent. Which offer are you taking?
Who's gonna be on the contract?
What was the decision here? So you,
Two buyers come in, putting the same exactly offer, number one. One is represented, one is not. You are the listed agent. You have some
I
commission there.
present both offers
You
and
present both.
every single offer. And the owner can make a decision based on what they're gonna net.
If the terms are exactly the same, which
Then it's
offer?
the seller's decision.
yeah, but there's still
It's not my
gonna be agents
decision,
that are
it's the
not gonna be like this, and probably they wouldn't do it. But even without this change, there were agents that would have a direct deal and not work with another buyer.
Yeah,
They-
so my first instinct was, you need to contact your buyer agent. And he immediately said, I don't have a buyer agent and I didn't sign a new contract or anything. I said, okay, then you gotta sign a non-representation. So you see disclosure of non-representation? EXP represents only EXP Realty client concerning their sale or purchase of the property as applicable. EXP does not represent you concerning your sale or purchase of the property. So they signed it acknowledging that I don't represent them. Okay? So you guys, and there's a waiver. And you're representing and you warrant that you're unrepresented by a real estate brokerage, that you are represented by and that you have instructed the real estate brokerage company in writing not to present. And even if they were, they have instructed them not to be involved. Like, they're covering all the bases for EXP. Okay? Anyone experience anything crazy? Just me?
I'm out of the business, I have to go back.
What do you mean you're out of the business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing real estate too much now, but once I get time, I got experience with things.
Why aren't you doing real estate as much? You're renovating your house.
Yes, I don't have time. But, if I, then I find this situation. But my mindset right now is, I get a listing, I sign the listing paperwork, I get a buyer, you wanna work with me, I sign the paperwork. That's it, like, I'm trying not to have to.
Okay, you gotta make sure you're signing the right paperwork.
And then if they say no, then no problem, then I'm gonna sign it.
Okay. So anybody else experience anything crazy, Michelle?
I'm signing buyer reps, some of them don't want long term, so I do for the day or for the week. I put 2.5 names, and I tell them that I'll negotiate it down to 2, but not below 2. If it's below 2, they'll have to compensate if the seller isn't compensating. So I'm starting at 2.5, because I know the average in the area is 2.5.
Hey, you submitted one for mine for 3.
Well, that's studio. Studio is 3%. So that's how I work, that's how I communicate with the buyer. And I let them know that, look at my experience. So I'm throwing my experience, my exposure out there with the backing of my team. So, and if it's a no, then no problem, then we can do just with this property. And figure it out yourself.
There's no problem how much they can ask, right?
You
There's
can
no cap. You could ask whatever you want. There's no, it's very clear on all the forms, guys, that it says commission is negotiable. Okay, and that's.
I know someone that asked me 3.5% for buyer rep.
Yeah.
3.5. That's really nice.
Dollar configuration.
No, the buyer.
Dollar agree.
Even if the seller doesn't agree to all of it, right? The seller could agree to a portion of it and the buyer can compensate for the balance.
What about for old market reasons? I have to tell you, I'm gonna work with him, but it's not gonna sign any paper.
So sign it with your buyer.
I have agents that want to show that up.
You have no.
I have an agreement, verbal agreement that is complete.
No.
It's the open listing.
Yeah, and what's stopping those buyer agents now from going direct to him and cutting you out? You have no contract, you have nothing. right? If Michelle finds out that that's an open listing, is she gonna get you involved?
What's that?
All right, what we've also included for you guys is part of the EXP toolbox, toolkit for, buyers. This is part of,
It's on workplace.
yeah, on Workplace.
It's a vital tools and resources for NAR changes.
I want you guys to include this in some of your presentations, like, look at this buyer roadmap, right?
It's in the buyer toolkit. This is straight from EXP's website. And if
Buyer's
you go,
roadmap.
scroll to the bottom, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just press it, and it'll give you everything that you need to know to the buyer.
EXP has been amazing in giving us all of these resources so that we have all the tools we need to go out there and be professional, be educated, right? So instead of you guys just saying to a buyer, it's the, you know, you have to sign a contract because it's the law now. Come on, guys. What is your value proposition? What are you gonna do to educate them where they're gonna want to work with you as opposed to me, or you as opposed to Michelle, or, you know, why would they choose working and signing a contract with you as opposed to another agent, right? What is your value proposition? Or are you educating them enough, right, with these tools? Like, if you're able to give them a lot of these tools, or even show some of these things, right, at the open houses, you're gonna set yourself apart, because buyers are just as confused as agents these days, right? You're telling them, you just met them for 10 seconds, and you're telling them that they need to sign a contract with you? Come on, like, how are they gonna trust you, right?
So like amazing.
Yeah,
They break down things.
That's all here in the toolkit. The,
You say it's in a workplace or is it
Workplace.
in the?
they sent an email, and it's in workplace.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find the email.
you see, what you should know, your guide, we
Yeah.
guide your buying experience, right?
This email came out yesterday from EXP at 11 a.m. It says the NAR settlement timeline. And then if you go to check it out, it'll take you to Workplace. And Workplace has all these toolkits. So you can click on the buyer toolkit, and then it has everything here, to use.
Do you guys remember in the very beginning of the year, I asked you guys to create a buyer's guide? Now it's time to update it, okay? Update your buyer's guide to include these. Because back then, this wasn't the law, and now it is. And these are amazing questions. I mean, they're in bold and they're very, very clear with their answers. Like, what if a buyer says, I want to see properties this weekend, but I want to understand my options, what should I do? Right? Contact the agent you've been working with or begin interviewing agents. They can still show you property. How you work with your agent and establish a relationship is evolving. Currently, any offer of compensation to your buyer broker can be found in the multiple. Currently, any offer of compensation to your buyer broker can be found in multiple listing service starting August 17th. That will no longer be the case, right? So obviously before August 17th. And then it tells them further what happens after August 17th. What is the buyer rep agreement? Will I have to pay my agent out of pocket, right? And it goes into pretty much everything that they need to know.
And they have scripts here.
And then now I want you guys to go through the scripts. Okay? And I need you guys to practice the scripts. When you're calling buyers back, right, leads that you've gotten, you need to give a little before you take a little, right? And that was the whole thing that Michelle touched on last week.
And I signed 3 buyer references.
Yeah. So you guys, you can't, that's kind of like listings, right? What do you mean?
I'm sell a deal for the week, which is for the week.
Yeah, so they are exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I do this like 6 months. but
It's still an exclusive.
Oh, because for them, they didn't feel, they don't know me. And that's what I say in the conversation to begin with. I know you don't know me. I know that it may be scary to sign a contract with me right away. So why don't we do this? So today, we'll sign the exclusive, it'll last for the week. And all the properties we see this week, if you don't like working with me, then we can go our separate ways. I want you to feel confident you're hiring someone who knows the market, who knows the numbers, who knows the co-op. And they're like, yeah, sure.
So what happens after a week, if you can extend it?
And then so in my agreement that I have, I'll show you this one. Any property that they saw with me, if they place an offer, it's 120 days from when the agreement expires.
Okay.
That's 4 months. The average days on the market now in Florida is about 4.5 months. So this covers me at least until then, but again, if they signed it, in the old model, they would have screwed me over anyway. So here, I'm showing them that I trust them, they trust me, and then the next time, I'm gonna sign a longer agreement. Until they, until we place an offer. The goal is not to have window shoppers, the goal is to secure them in an offer. So yesterday, I showed the first time home buyer, we went back and forth a lot about the agreement, and I showed her 6 properties yesterday. She's like, oh, I really like this property, but it's my first time out. I don't know if I even want to place an offer right away. I want to see more properties. So I went over everything with her as far as the risk of waiting, the risk of going now, and she said, I don't think I'm ready, I want to see more properties. And this morning she said, you know what, I want to place the offer. Because I told her, if the property is meeting all of your checklists, what are you waiting for in 6 months from now? Then you're gonna compare everything to this unit, place the offer, see if they even will accept it if you wanna negotiate. If they don't, that'll be your indication, okay, it wasn't meant for me, let's move forward. But then, it doesn't matter if it's the first day or 6 months from now, if it's meeting your checklist, this may be the property for you.
Sure, I have a question. Where did you meet this buyer?
It was a lead that came in, looking for one of the other listings. So I told her, we have a lot of properties in the area. And she indicated she only wanted to see the team listing. So I said, no problem, but here are the other options. She was nervous about the commission. So I told her that I'll contact every agent, and agent is covering it, I'll let you know, and if they're not covering, we can regroup. But it shouldn't be a conversation of now, because you may not even like the listing.
Right.
So we're worried about a commission on a property that you may not even like. So why don't we see all the properties, and then we'll narrow it down. If you don't like it, then it's a moot point. If you like it, then we'll discuss how we can strategize this offer compared to other offers on the market.
But when you signed the buyer contract, your commission on the contract was, okay?
So I'll show
You
you
need
my
to know
agreement.
how to educate them to the point where they understand it's all negotiable. And you're gonna work in their best interest to make it work.
So I put residential and other, because they didn't have co-op, and in the graphic area, I put co-op. Like, I wanted to be clear that it's co-op, because they can argue, well, residential means houses, it's co-op. So I like to cover all my bases, so no one can interpret it differently. This one I did until the end of the year. So she's working with me until the end of the year. She agreed that she's not working with any other non-exclusive buyer broker representation. Over here, I put 2.5%. And I explained to her, because what I like about this form is that it says here the different ways that I can collect my fee. If it's from the seller to broker compensation, or credit to the buyer. So this helps me explain to the buyer that there's other ways than you having to pay me.
Yeah, regardless, they also have to understand regardless of who they work with, compensation's coming from somewhere, right? So, like, why aren't you getting an ad agent to advocate and work for you? When it's built most of the time into the price already.
So this one is another buyer. She did not want to sign for more than the week. So I signed for the week. But over here in the bottom, I put that the broker fee shall be due and payable if buyer enters into agreement for purchase any property within 120 days. So that's how I kind of protecting myself. But now, she liked the way I worked, so after, she sent me a list of other properties she wants to see, so I explained to her, now we're gonna have to sign a longer agreement. So I built her trust in the first showing out, and then the second time it was a little bit easier. I feel like if we do it as a matter of fact, these are the changes, this is what needs to be done, and don't have that like insecurity, because that will translate to the buyer and they won't feel confident.
That's why these
Can you
trainings are
send
happening. Yes, yes.
Oh, you have to send a new form.
Well, I'm gonna send a new form, a new form. The agency, like I signed agency, I signed the housing, but the buyer broker representation will be a new one with new dates.
Are you going, you have to update the agency also?
No.
No, because it's still the
She
same
represents the
relationship.
buyer.
I'm still representing the buyer.
Yeah.
Once you have a buyer's broker's agreement, you automatically representing the buyer's house.
They're hiring you.
Yeah, even with the single property, you're representing the buyer. That's the only option you guys have right now, or non-exclusive, but that's still you representing the buyer, it's just not exclusive, right?
I have a question, so when you're doing the non-exclusive, like say the one day is showing the file.
One day it's still an exclusive,
Okay, one day, do you still have to sign the agency disclosure?
always
as
agency.
as a broker or as?
No, they're still hiring you.
Right, okay.
If it's single,
Okay, if they unrepresented, then you sign the disclosure as a broker. Right, I just wanted to be clear.
But you're only unrepresented guys on your own listing, it doesn't exist for MLS listing.
So when you have a buyer, agreement, you have to also have them sign the agency disclosure.
You always want the agency disclosure from years back,
Yeah.
always,
Yes, so we used to do check and seller.
yes.
Now we have to do a buyer.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So unrepresented is still, is seller,
still broken.
unrepresented is.
You could only be unrepresented on your own listings, guys, or your team's listing. Okay, being a sub-agent of the seller,
Have a sub-agent of the broker.
So,
of
The
the,
EXP is,
you could be, if the
So all
seller is
officers, they
compensating,
automatically
if the
sub-agent?
seller is compensating unrepresented agent. Huh?
So if it's a EXP listing, it's always, you're always a sub-agent, but not always.
If you're non-represented, like, for example, John, you're doing an open house, right, for Michelle?
Right,
Right. So if they show interest, right, and they still say, I don't wanna sign a buyer brokerage agreement, you're gonna ask Michelle if they're gonna pay, if your sellers are paying an unrepresented broker, okay? So that would be your compensation, but in the event that they are not, unfortunately, you're gonna have to give that feedback to Michelle.
or I asked EXP, the brokers, if you're allowed to charge unrepresented buyers.
We're waiting for a response.
You ask EFC if we are able to charge unrepresented buyers, but the reason why they want to be unrepresented is because they don't pay the commission.
Yeah, but Vincent's saying like a flat fee or something for all the extra paperwork.
I think that you're gonna find people that come to open houses asking for non-representation, and there's gonna be some sellers that don't want to pay for non-represented buyers. They're gonna say, hey, listen, I signed a listing agreement with you. You're charging me for the listing side. If you have a direct buyer, that's it. Right? That's all you're gonna get. We actually have a seller that sent that to us and signed an agreement with us.
That too.
Yeah, and and I feel like, yeah, there's more work with an unrepresented buyer, so it makes sense for us to explain to them, hey, you could come in as an unrepresented buyer, but our fee for that is gonna be blank.
So I had a seller just like yours, right, who said that, listen, I've read all about the NAR settlement, and the whole point is to pay less commission for the seller and buyer. So why are you asking me now to also pay for an unrepresented buyer? Tell the buyer to pay. Right? So similar to Vincent's situation, like some sellers are like, no, I'm only compensating my side, that's it.
The whole point is to get you, the seller, to net more.
Yeah.
Is to give you the opportunity to net more. And if compensation is one of the ways that we could do that, then I encourage you to consider, compensating cooperating agents and letting it be known that you're willing to compensate cooperating agents. What we won't do is put out there how much you're going to compensate them, right? And we're going to factor that in on a case by case as offers come in, but I want you to be of the mindset that we will be compensating our cooperating agents.
So Vincent, how did you explain to the seller how the unrepresented buyer will be compensated in your situation? Because they submitted the offer for you.
For that particular situation, that was a team member's listing, and it was already signed, and the agreement was no unrepresented buyer compensation. Okay, so in that situation, can you repeat that, Olga?
So I mean, I understand in that agreement you already put that, but in a new agreement, you're just gonna put the commission and explain to the seller that in the event if the buyer come directly and we would need to help them to go through the process, we still represent you as a seller, but for that job it's going to be extra X amount of the commission.
Correct. So I have a listing that I signed earlier this week, and we listed it for 3.5% on the listing side. Okay. And then under unrepresented buyers, I put 5.5. My explanation is, if there's no cooperating agent, then that means we have to be the ones to manage the buyer through the entire process.
Why you put on the unrepresented 5.5? Why didn't put 2.5?
Because if you read the listing agreement, it says if the listing side compensation will be so and so, and if an unrepresented buyer comes and an agreement's made with that buyer, like they have an accepted offer, then the listing compensation will be blank. So that should be the higher amount, not the lower amount.
So if I explain to the seller that my commission is 6%, if both sides, I put listing side 4% and unrepresented, I put 2%. I did it wrong.
So if you want to explain it that way, Olga, this is very good, and this is good for everybody, okay?
Olga,
So you could still explain that. So, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my compensation will be a total of 6%, but you're only going to pay that compensation if an unrepresented buyer comes and purchases the property. If a buyer comes from an outside agent and they're being represented by an outside agent, I'm going to help you negotiate the buyer compensation. And in that case, my listing compensation will only be 3.5%.
No, my compensation is 4.
Okay. So you get it? So now you could say, okay, it's 6% total. If there's an unrepresented buyer, it's only 4% if there's a cooperating agent, and I'm going to actually help you negotiate the other side of that transaction.
Again, on the form that I put 4 and unrepresented 2. That's correct. Because the way you said 3.5 and then 5.5 you said.
So I want you to read this form, okay? Take a look at what Michelle has.
It's not represented. If buyer is not represented by a broker, then broker EXP assumes additional liability and paperwork responsibilities. In this scenario, broker will not represent buyer, but will facilitate the completion of necessary forms and ensure fair treatment of all parties. In this situation, the listing broker compensation shall be exactly percentage of the gross purchase price.
So what it says is if there's an unrepresented buyer,
Can we
then
ask,
total commission will be blank.
Can we do,
So I should have put 4% at the beginning, and then the second line unrepresented 6.
Correct.
Okay.
are you sure?
Yes.
I've been filling it in wrong then.
Yeah. And I went through that with I role played it with a couple of people. I read through it, and to me it reads very clearly that if there's an unrepresented buyer, then the commission is going to be blank, right? So you don't want to take less for an unrepresented buyer, you want to take more.
Because I will check that with Lily, and that's how I also put. I put 4 and 2, because that's I understood. So you're
Okay.
saying basically it should be 4 and 6.
Yeah, so from now on, go, and it's probably just something that they missed, and I don't think they're going to enforce it. But
He doesn't think they're gonna enforce it.
and
can you do right now,
Okay.
this way and your way, what's the difference?
So I did like 3%,
Yeah, me too.
which means it should be 6%, but he's saying that it should be 6% down there.
Yeah, I'm represented by.
So you were saying that you were going to get 3% regardless if it was like.
She's saying that if the buyer comes unrepresented, that for her to work with the buyer is 3%. So the
Which
way,
is already what she's trying to believe.
and that's in addition to the listing side, which is 3%. So
I mean,
total-
what I'm saying, it makes more sense. I think it's easier gonna be to explain.
it should be total. From what I'm reading, I'm understanding it now, like how Vincent is explaining it.
Okay, I think I get that.
Yeah.
The way that you put it is like another additional fee, but the way that it reads is already the fee that you.
Well, it should be 3 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just easier to explain to them, saying basically, it's gonna be like in my situation 4, if the other agent will be involved, and it's gonna be total still 6 if the buyer will submit an offer from me.
this whole thing is all about how you explain things.
So that I'm
And
saying, but you said it's easier gonna be to explain.
I think so. And the way that you had it, you could completely work it backwards, and you could put the unrepresented buyer fee first in your discussion, right? So when you're communicating with them, you say, hey, fee for my service is 6%. You're only going to pay that 6% if an unrepresented buyer comes in and purchases this property, right? Because in that situation, I've got to work both sides of the transaction. I have to work the buyer through financing. I have to work the buyer through appraisal, inspection, walkthroughs, and contractors and everything. But in the case that the buyer has their own representation, and you know what, 95% of the agents, 95% of the buyers are working with agents out there. Okay,
Yeah.
So in the case that they have their own representation, then my compensation will only be 4%, and I'm actually going to help you negotiate the other side of the transaction, right? The compensation for the buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm. I think it's better.
Right? And the whole thing, Lily brought it up before, it's all about how you explain it. When you're working with the buyer and they call you right off the bat, I was walking through this with the team today when we were doing our role play. It's like a lot of the agents are like, hey, there's this new rule that's coming down and there's a lawsuit, and and that's just scary, right? You don't need to go into that with your buyers. What you need to do is say, when do you want to see the property? All right. If I find other properties, would you like to see that as well at the same time? What about the property do you like? Right? What's your motivation? Are you working with another agent? Right? Do you have your mortgage all figured out? Right? If I could confirm the appointment, I'm going to get right back to you. But before that, I'm going to send you over 3 forms. I'm going to send you over an agency disclosure. I'm going to send you a non-discrimination form, and I'm going to send you over my representation agreement. In my representation agreement, it's going to show that my max compensation is blank. Okay. Many of the cases, we're going to get a good portion of that compensation to be paid by the seller. Right? And anything that we don't, you know, so in that.
We can say, to simplify that, we can say that we're gonna implement our fees into the purchase price.
Yeah.
Not it's gonna be paid by the seller, because sometimes, you know, what if the seller say no? So we can just say we're gonna work out the fees into the purchase price.
Yeah, that's fine. That's actually great. Right? Those fees are going to be added to the purchase price. Right? And, you know, just send that form back to me. Just give me your authorization, and I'll set you up for the showing. You don't have to overcomplicate it. They don't need to know about settlements and lawsuits and August 17th or anything like that. If they ask for explanation, then you could go into it. Agree?
I actually watched yesterday a really good video of one guy, and he was explaining the previous model and the new model. And at the end, he put the chart on the both. I will send you that link. And at the end, he put the chart of both models. And you can see clearly it's the same amount of fees coming still. Everything comes still from the buyer side. But you know, the way he explained that, I think we can use that chart because it's still same between 5 and 6% fees.
Right.
You know, just simplify. I think we can use some of his lines into the seller or the buyer presentation. I think it was good.
Add it to the chat over here.
Yeah, if you could
I don't know
find
how to get it. I don't know
would
how
love to see that, Olga.
just go into your history on YouTube and
Michelle, I texted you yesterday this link. Do you know how to edit?
Yeah.
I sent you. I said it's good information to see.
Well, we're not gonna watch it now, half an hour. I'll text
No,
it.
I just wanted to include that link if you can, because I don't know how to share that.
Yeah.
So when you signing an agreement with the buyer, you also send an agency disclosure? And.
Fair housing.
Fair housing.
Those have always been the case from the beginning. That was required regardless.
Yeah, but going forward, it's gonna be checked up as buyer, so we.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, if we want.
We can't even get them to sign one more.
No, you could get them to sign.
Yeah, we will.
It is very hard how to explain it. But
Yeah.
you could scare them and they don't want
Right.
to sign anything, but you can nicely tell
I feel like you need to read, especially for the buyers, you need to read for body language. They're like, it's all about, and you know, mirroring. So if they're nervous, reassuring and giving them the opportunity to say, you still have the point, but start slow. If they're like the type of buyers, yeah, whatever, you can sign them for a year, you know? So you just have to be able to be intuitive with buyers.
I think the best way to do it is creating that presentation that we always talk about. And, you know, I've been doing that, and at that point, the buyers sign the agency disclosure, the fair housing, no problem. In this agreement, you give them enough value, what you want to be doing for our process.
Correct, the buyer's guide and showing them the value proposition.
Exactly, they understand. I mean, eventually they're gonna have to sign with someone,
Yeah,
and if you
you
show
let
them.
them know that this is now a requirement, so regardless, once they're outgoing, touring homes, they're gonna need a contract. And an agent that's showing you properties without it is going against the rules right now, right? And do you really wanna work with an agent that does that?
Yeah, but now it becomes so important in social media, the branding, you know, how people want to feel doing. Real estate in high level, so they're gonna hire you, they're gonna sign their agreement, no problem, they
Yeah.
see you doing it every day.
So now that there's a lot of you guys here, I wanted to take the next 20 minutes to role play, right? Come on, don't say no, don't practice on new people, like real live clients, okay? So pretend that and I don't know if Vincent or Francis could get people together on Zoom,
Yeah.
but, you know, The scripts, the buyer consultation script was emailed over. You could also get it where Michelle says at EXP Toolkit. It was also emailed to everyone as well.
Michelle, take that script page and put it into the chat.
What?
And what Francis is going to do is he's going to put people in groups of 3 on Zoom.
If you do it with single property. Or somebody, you still have to send an agency disclosure. You need agency regardless. No. Single property, you said one. Then 2 days later, they call you back and you want to see a single property. Do it again. Every time you have to find agency, it's just a one. Okay. Agency, you only need. That's what we did before too, that's the way.
You only change it if the agency changes.
If your relationship changes.
Right, right.
Okay.
So if your relationship changes from a broker agent to a buyer agent, then you have to change it. If your agency stays the same, you keep it the same. Just make sure when you're signing the agency, disclosure, you're putting advanced dual agency. So they understand that it is in a situation that the sale is within EXP and the advanced informed consensual agency is checked off. Okay, what's a good one?
All right, guys. So,
Am I sharing again?
huh?
Am I sharing more?
No.
No.
Well, the script, did you give them the script?
I texted them the toolkit.
Okay.
They can open it.
It's under toolkits. Everything that we're distributing today is under toolkits.
The buyer.
I would love for you guys to practice, once a buyer starts asking you or showing interest, right? Like, how do you transition from when you're in an open house to start talking about representation and the different types of representations? With regards to leads coming in, Michelle says that what she does is you give a little before you take a little, right? So she first goes over what are they looking for, right? Then she goes over their qualifications, and then she sends them listings. Once they respond back that they want to see certain properties, that's when she starts talking about the relationship and developing that buyer client relationship. Okay?
And I do, as a matter of fact, I'm sure you already heard that the NAR settlement has passed August 17th. So moving forward, when you're looking at other properties, you'll have to sign an agreement.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys could do groups of 3 too, right? You 3 up there, you 3 over here, you 3 over there, and then we'll throw Kathy into somebody's group. But why don't you guys critique each other and just say like, well, this is how I do it, and this is what I say, and come on. You have to. You need to get uncomfortable. Go with your team. Go with your team.
What if the buyer says to you, oh, just go to the listing agent?
That's fine. You want to go to the listing agent?
All right, Francis, let's set us up in groups of 3. We could do it for 15 minutes and make sure you mute that room. Those guys are loud.
Okay, we need to roll names.